And the answer is nowhere. That's what he's saying. I remember when I was young, probably 7 years old or 6 years old, my brothers took me out, to a field, and they told me to count to 10, and then they were going to hide, and I was supposed to find them, right? So I count to 10, and then I turn around, and my brothers had run away. Like, they just left me all by myself in the field. They weren't hiding anywhere. They just, I don't know where they went. So I got very scared because I didn't know where I was. I mean, I was probably like 2 blocks from home, but when you're 7, you don't know directions very well, where home is. I had never been in this field before, and I'm by myself, so I just start crying and crying. And after like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, my brothers come and they say, "Crybaby," They were making fun of me. So I mean, it's really scary. I mean, being abandoned in this field by myself and not knowing any place, not knowing anybody there. So you have the sense that God doesn't do this. He doesn't run away from us. He doesn't flee. He's always there when he needs them. So verse 8 talks about height and depth. Go up to the sky. If I go, the astronauts who blast off into space, God is there. Into the depths, if I dig my way to China, God's there all the way. So he meets me on the other side. So his presence is everywhere. Then the next verse talks about the breadth of God's presence. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, being the east, as far as I can go from the east where the sun rises, or if I settle on the far side of the sea, so he's going west. So from Israel, you have the Mediterranean Sea, so he's talking about this westward going as far as I can go to Spain, beyond. God is there. He encompasses the world, is basically what he's saying. Doesn't matter. So wherever we go, God is there. His presence. You get off the plane, he's there. His guidance is always there, and sometimes it's very hidden. We don't know. It's the story of Jonah. Jonah wants to flee from God. God tells Jonah, go to Nineveh, go to preach. And Jonah says, no, I don't want to go. So he goes the other direction. And the events, the sea, he gets swallowed by the fish, and he repents, and then he ends up going off to Nineveh to preach. So even there, God was guiding him. So I really feel or believe that for us, for those who really want to seek after God, want to do His will, we don't do it perfectly. We make mistakes. We go the wrong direction. God, we come to a fork in the road. God wants us to go right. We go left. And we think, we messed up the plans. But God's not really rattled by that. I mean, God doesn't go, oh no, Jerry went to the left side, he's supposed to go the right, all my plans are ruined, now I got to redo everything. God's, trying to scramble around to make things right. And it's not like that. We can't mess up God's plans, even if we do the wrong thing. God is always drawing us back, like Jonah, to go the right direction. So you don't ruin your plans, you don't ruin God's plans. God just makes a new way. But it does have to do with our response. We have to continually seek after Him, and if we take a wrong step, recognize it and come back to where God wants us to go. And He guides along in that sense. So continually conscious of each of us throughout the day. Okay, let's go on to the last part where we talk about justice. So go back to 19 and 24.
If only you would slay the wicked, O God. Away from me, you bloodthirsty men.
They speak of you with evil intent, your adversaries misuse your name.
Do I not hate those who hate you, Lord? And how do those who rise up against me?
I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies.
Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts.
And see if there is any wicked way in me, and lead
So, C.S. Lewis points out, when he talks about Psalms of Justice, that the perspective is not of the one who's being judged, but the perspective here is the one of who's complaining about something. This is the person who's complaining. He has something to bring, some injustice, and he needs to have the case heard. So a lot of times, in ancient justice, the only time you got justice was when you had enough money to pay the judge to hear your case. If you didn't have the money to bribe the judge, you couldn't get justice, whether your cause was just or right. And this is a reality for most people. And it's true today. In many cultures, I know there are cases, when I was in Korea, there was a case of our president and of the university, and some people were against him, and they bribed the judge to get certain judgments against him. I'm sure it happens in other cultures around the world, in a lot of cultures. It doesn't happen here so much that we know of. We have juries. It's hard to bribe an entire jury to get a decision. Some people may try, but it's not always true. In the story in the New Testament, you have the widow and the unjust judge. If you remember the story in Luke 18. So she can't get justice. She's poor. She's a widow, so she doesn't have the money to bribe the judge, but she has a right cause. And so she has the only chance. He can do everything. So if my cause is just, God will hear me and He will carry it out. I don't have the money for it. I don't have the power to carry this out, but God does. And so ultimately, God sees all, and He's able to judge justly, and He cares. He cares about your situation because He can see it. So that ties in with the entire psalm together, really. So the very last part, the last two verses, search me, O God, know me. He's talking about His innocence here, God examining. He's not perfect. He knows that He's not perfect, but He's trying to walk in the right way, so He's asking God to search. And this is not something where you're by yourself. This is not some kind of introspection of self, where you're trying to figure yourself out. This is asking God to search you. If you're just by yourself trying to examine yourself, you get very discouraged. I did this wrong, I did that wrong, I did that bad. But this is asking God to take the torch and examine your life, and then show you the right way, and to help you out, and to put you on the right path. So there is a place for us to examine ourselves, to examine our hearts, to ask God to examine, really, where we're at, what we've done, to see we're not innocent, and God can bring us out into a better place, or His way, His paths. And that's what the psalmist is asking him to do. So I just want to end with that, and then maybe take a few minutes just to ask God to search our hearts, and just ask Him, Lord, search me, O God, know me, test me, know my anxious thoughts, my doubts, my fears, and bring me into the way of life everlasting, of your paths, your righteousness, God. And just ask Him. So maybe I just want to take even though we have traffic coming out and cars, so try to ignore traffic and just spend 1 minute. We'll just spend just to ask God individually, and then Rich is going to play, and then just sing a few songs and meditation and praise. So let's do that for a minute. So.